Hello and welcome to the Motorway Man. Today we're looking at smart motorways. Now most people, they love them or they hate them. And to be honest, a lot of the British public, they don't like them very much at all. So today I'll be sort of explaining and unpacking what actually a smart motorway is. And I'll also be sharing my opinion if I think, well, they're as smart as the government seems to think they are. So let's get into the video. Now before I start, to clarify, there is 3 different types of smart motorway and I'll be covering them all in this video. So let's get into it. Now right here we can see the classic British motorway of what it looks like. Most motorways are 3 lanes wide and they feature 3 lanes for running traffic and also a hard shoulder which allows you to pull over in the event of an emergency, such as like if you have a flat tyre or if you need to, call an ambulance or whatever. So that's what an average British motorway looks like. Now this is the first type of smart motorway and this is called an all-lane running motorway. Now basically there is no hard shoulder on this one, as we can see that's been converted to another lane. So rather than 3 lanes for traffic, it's now 4, but because of the extra space required to make the new lane, we do lose the hard shoulder, which can be quite dangerous in an emergency. So instead of a hard shoulder, every half a mile we have these emergency refuge areas, and they feature an emergency telephone allowing you to contact emergency services. But what if your car breaks down before you reach half a mile? So that is a bit of a downside. And but these signs are quite well signposted, which is nice, and you'll probably see a sign like this. But guys, what if a fire engine was trying to get past? These are really important things, and without a hard shoulder in traffic jams like the one on screen, we couldn't really let the emergency services get past, because as we can see there's 4 lanes, but with no hard shoulder, in the event of an emergency, the emergency services wouldn't be able to get past. So unfortunately, although it's better in the short term, and especially when it's not that busy, when it is, it doesn't really work that well. Now the next scheme was called the Active Traffic Management Scheme, and the first part of that was installed on the M42. Now the way it works is people in the control room, like the one on screen, they basically decide all there is on the motorway based on what's relevant at the time. So for example, if there's lots of cars and people need to get there quickly, they might higher the speed limit, for example. Or if there's a lot of traffic, there's a bit of congestion, they might need to lower it or something like that. So they might drop it down to 40 miles an hour, because the average on Britain's roads is 70 miles an hour anyway. So yeah, for example, as we can see here, people in the control room decide what we can see. So for example, they've decreased it for 40 miles an hour because there's a lot of traffic there and they want to keep it moving rather than build up and cause congestion and things like that. So basically the way active traffic management works is people in the control room put new speed limits on or anything like that based on what's relevant for the time, which is actually quite helpful. Now another thing they can do with the active traffic management way of using smart motorways is report problems. For example, there might be a stranded vehicle. This sign's very helpfully letting us know that. And another thing that they might have on the signs is an obstruction. As we can see here, there's an obstruction in the lane, and this sign is letting us know that. So anything that happens, rather than being fixed in place, the active traffic management scheme lets us know these things as well. And again, important things such as road closures, all this active management scheme lets us know as soon as it happens, because people are in the control rooms monitoring it 24/7, and it's always relevant for the time. So maybe that one isn't too bad. Now moving on then, the final type of smart motorway is called a hard shoulder running motorway, and it really looks a bit like this. So we've got, the 3 lanes like the standard motorways, but we also have a hard shoulder, which is good, for emergencies, like I was saying. But in peak times, you can actually drive on the hard shoulder just as if it was a normal lane. As we can see from the sign there, it says use the hard shoulder. And this was a scheme used that basically, okay, we're coming up to a bit of congestion, it's going to be busy, so, if you want to use the hard shoulder for this, you can. And sometimes it's used, just as a bit of an extra slip road to get to the next junction if there is congestion, so it can be quite useful. So like I was saying, whenever you're on a motorway and you see a sign saying use the hard shoulder, you don't be scared to. The sign's not made a mistake. On smart motorways, you are allowed to use the hard shoulder, which can be quite confusing, but usually now you've watched this video, you should know if you're on a smart motorway or not. Right guys, time for my analysis then and my opinion. So, are smart motorways a good idea? So I'll start with the first one then. So all lane running motorways. Now personally I'm not a fan of them, and it's just because of the safety feature. I think to let the emergency services get past, like the one on screen now, I feel like there should be an extra option there in case of an emergency, for an ambulance to get past, or if your tyre goes or something and you need to pull over, because waiting every half a mile for one of those refuge areas, they might not come up that often. And then the hard shoulder running motorways, which was the last one we looked at, that they're okay, I guess, because you can use the hard shoulder and stuff. But if there was a police car coming behind you, you might not be able to move out quick enough, so that's probably not the best way. And active traffic management as well, that's still not the greatest, because although it's relevant for the time, it can be quite confusing if everything's changing every couple of minutes. So unfortunately, government, smart motorways, they aren't the solution to the country's traffic rising problems, unfortunately. So there you go, guys. There's my opinion on Britain's smart motorways. So thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed. Thank you and goodbye.